and welcome to the channel. So this is a little bit of a different one tonight, even though it's going live out on, well, it's going out on both channels, live out on Hereticals. But it's not me hosting it. I'm actually going to be the subject of the interview. So it's going to be a little bit backwards to how it would normally be, but that's okay. Run with it. So everyone who's in the live chat, really good to see you all. We will be doing super chats, but we're going to save them till the end. So if you do want to throw out a super chat, throw it out there and I'll keep an eye on it. Just keep it respectful. We're not going to, this isn't an Tangela or Darth Dawkins situation. This is going to be a very nice conversation, I assume, with between myself and Isaiah. So Isaiah, mate, it's your show tonight. So I'll pass the ball to you.
Yeah, well, Chris, first and foremost, thank you so much for allowing us to do this on your channel, because I initially talked to you about coming onto my channel. So there's just some technical problems as far as you need 24 hours once you activate it's just some nonsense. But thank you so much. But my name's Isaiah.
We all go through.
Yeah, my name's Isaiah Diesel, and I host the rhepodcast. And so again, thank you for hosting me. And okay, so this is going to be a little bit hard since I'm on your channel, but I'm just going to start out the way that I would normally start off.
Go for it.
And the first thing I would like to do is I would like you to tell me where you rate from a 1 to 7 on the Dawkins Scale.
I don't really know the Dawkins Scale, but what's the furthest atheist there is? 7. Well, that's me.
Oh, wow! You are literally the first person I've had to say that. Okay. All right, that would be your Gnostic, called a Gnostic atheist. Okay.
Yeah, I don't really. I have seen Dawkins Scale before. I don't really agree with the methodology behind it, but I'm as atheist as you can get.
Well, it actually does make a lot of sense, because just in the same way, like with sexuality, very few people fall on the extreme ends of let's say, like the most extreme gay guy or the most extreme straight guy. Very few people are on the exact opposite ends of the spectrum. A lot of people fall in between. There's a lot of gray grounds. That's just a reality, like it or not. So,
there might be some gray, but there's some pretty black and white there too.
Well, it's just I like it. I personally like it. We could agree to disagree on this, but I personally like it because it makes room for agnostic, and it makes room for various degrees of believing. So I would consider myself number one. So
sorry, when it comes to belief, yeah, absolutely. There's a lot in the middle. It's pretty rare that you'll find someone like myself who is just I acknowledge that I'm about as far on the atheist scale as you can go.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you are definitely rare, because not even Dawkins himself would make that leap, but he calls himself like a 6.8. Everyone I've talked to, that's the highest they'll go. So it's going to be interesting to hear this talk. But that being said, what I like to do is I like to have a friendly fire round, which is I'm just going to ask you a few questions, and they really don't have anything to do with God per se. But are you ready? Just answer these as fast as possible.
Fire away.
Okay. All right. Favorite 90s band?
That's not an easy question, but I'm going to lose half my audience here. Spice Girls.
Oh, interview done. No, Nirvana here. Okay, Nirvana. Well, they're from the UK, so I can.
Well, Nirvana's up there. Trust me, Nirvana's definitely up there. But their best song, "Smells Like Teen Spirit," actually came out in the '80s. So that's my disclaimer.
Okay, touche. All right, here we go. Coffee or tea? And I'm assuming tea.
Wow. Well, coffee, but I'm drinking tea right now.
All right. Crocodile Dundee or Crocodile Hunter?
Hunter. Crocodile Hunter.
Hunter. And all right, last one. If you had to have a pet and you had to choose either koala or kangaroo?
Oh, koala.
Koala?
Yeah, all day. They just sit there, eat leaves, getting stoned, and that's kind of it.
Yeah.
You just got to watch the drop bear. So long as it's a koala and not a drop bear, we're good.
So before we get started in the actual questions that I sent you, have you gotten a chance to take a look at those?
Yeah, I had a look at them.
Yeah.
Yep, there's no problems with any of them. I think it'll I'll get them up again, but or you can just fire away with them, and I think it'll be an interesting conversation.
Well, just for the audience to know that I like to provide the questions ahead of time, because very frequently what you might have in a discussion like this or debate is that people are trying to catch the other person off guard, or they're trying to ask gotcha questions, or trying to corner someone into a corner and to try to catch them off guard, whatever. So that's not what I try to do. I'm interested in having a conversation, interested in hearing where you came from. And so, yeah, it's an honest way that I think that I could treat you respectfully, because respect, humility, and empathy, those are the 3 letters of our podcast. But with that being said, I would like you to give me a 2-minute rundown, like a nutshell of your spirituality, where it developed from, and kind of like just the major points that caused you to adopt atheism, if you wouldn't mind.
Probably couldn't fit all that in 2 minutes, but I'll do my best to give you the elevator pitch.
2-minute drill. You know, football, proper football in America, where we throw the ball.
A gridiron.
Yeah, we get it. It's called it. Yeah, okay. It's called like a 2-minute, drill. You got to like rush it. Yeah, so rush it.
No, that's all right. I'm a Bucks fan, so I can sort that. Okay, so essentially, came from a family that is what you'd call not religious, but always would put on the census Church of England / Anglican, so the traditional religious family. But there was never any religion in my life up until when I was sort of late teens. I started looking into things, spirituality, you sort of name it, ufology, ancient aliens, pretty much everything. I went and explored a lot. I used to argue with Christians for fun. Come full circle there, but used to see, and actually had a friend who was a Christian challenge me, dragged me to church, and somewhere in that I ended up giving my life to Jesus. Wow. Which
later on
we broke up. We broke up many years later. And look, that was at a time in my life where emotionally I needed something. And I guess I was looking for community. I'd had a rough few years, and the church filled that gap for me. But I very much believed it. Because I have a tendency to be able to hold a conversation and talk, I was encouraged for a long time to get into ministry. So I started my journey in worship ministry because apparently I can hold a tune better than a few other people. So they'd get me up the front singing and doing that. That sort of developed into things like tithe talks, running small groups, and just sort of working progressively, I guess, up the ladder. From there, I went and studied a Bachelor of Theology and Ministry, which I didn't complete because whilst I was studying and actually looking into the Bible, I found way too many inconsistencies for my liking, a lot of problems. I've always had an interest in history, and incidentally, I am a historian. Well, now I'm a historian. I wasn't back then, but always had a keen interest. But sort of found that there was just too many, I guess, historical inconsistencies and too many inconsistencies within the Bible itself. That sort of led me to really sort of open up and just look and try and find the truth again.
So hold on. What age are we talking about at this? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but around what age is this?
Yeah. So this was a process that probably started mid-30s.
Okay. Just how old are you right now?
40.
Okay. I'm taking notes here, so do not mess up. Otherwise, I'm going to come back and scrutinize you.
Gee, I better remember the stuff I'm making up here. So there was one pivotal moment in a years earlier in a lecture actually on the Old Testament that led me, I guess, to really start to ask questions rather than just take for granted what I was being taught at the pulpit, which I think a lot of Christians do. They just listen to whatever their pastor says and that's it. They don't actually look into things for themselves. So from there, I eventually found my way out of religion. I was looking for answers. I looked into a lot of different things and came to the conclusion that there can't be a God.
Okay. All right. For the
so
record,
how to go for 2 minutes? Was that all right?
Yeah, that's fine. That's great. I will give you a quick 2 minutes of myself, then we'll get into these questions I sent you. But I had something similar go down. My mom strong-armed me to go to Bible college, and I went to Bible college, and a couple of key things happened. One was the fact that a woman I was in love with went on a missions trip to Indonesia, Papua New Guinea actually, and got bit by a snake and died. So that was like, I was in love with her, and I was just, it caused some conflict of faith right there. But yeah, seeing the genocides and stuff that was going on in the Old Testament, then asking your professors and really getting like answers that are not really like appropriate to give, you know, like especially if you want to respect someone's intelligence. Some of the answers they were giving were pretty out there, and so it really made me start to question the fundamental foundations that I had, which I wasn't even there. To be honest, I wasn't even there because I wanted to be there. I was there because to appease my mom. I wanted to pursue education and history, which I later did. But you know, I was there just out of pure appeasement. But another thing that happened was just seeing the level of judgmentalness and the level of hypocrisy. And it just really made me cower in fear and really want nothing to do with Christians or the church. And then one last thing I'll talk about. In Pentateuch, which is the first 5 books of the Bible, we're reading through like just taking like a survey of that. And in that class, the professor would occasionally call some students up for prayer requests, and they would like explain their prayers. And one of these students, it was like praying for his mom. I think his mom had cancer or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but we prayed for her. And the next week we followed up, and she said like she was okay and everybody got happy. Then another guy came up later on and said that his wife was going to go consult a woman who was going to get an abortion like the next week. And, you know, she was going to try to stop him, her. And so what happened was she went and talked to her, but she got the abortion anyway. So then the professor came up and it was like, well, you know, we don't ever really know what God's going to do in his work or whatever. And so those 2 things happened. It was like both times it just seems like either way, we were just going to say God was doing something that we couldn't understand. But then finally, something came up where we could actually do something, which one of the students came up and was talking about some kind of financial problems that he had. And actually, my parents went to Bible college while they had my older sister. And imagine going through college, like having a baby, like that's what they did. So the students actually got together and gave him some money because they had like no money, no diapers, no food, something like that. So at the end, like I gave the guy like $20, and I had like $40 to my name, and I gave him 20, and everyone just went about their way. And I started to analyze this, and I was like, the only thing out of those 3 that we could have actually done anything about, we just offered up prayers, and everyone went around their own way. So it caused like just a combination of everything just really made me become an atheist. But I was an atheist for many years, and then I had a religious conversion, 516 actually. It's just 7 years. So, but okay. The questions I have for you, number 1 is, what is the biggest factor that caused deconversion in your life?
Out of Christianity in particular?
Yeah. The number 1.
Inconsistencies in the Bible.
Okay.
The linchpin, the first one that got me, sitting in an Old Testament class. Introduction to Old Testament of all things, going through Genesis. And I wasn't particularly au fait with evolution. You know, I didn't understand a lot of it. But I knew that it was probably something that I thought was accurate. And I asked the question in the class because it was very much a young earth method. And I asked some questions and about, well, what if, you know, how would evolution fit in with the Genesis narrative, because I really had some issues. It didn't add up, because if young Earth isn't correct, Genesis doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So I asked the questions and essentially just sort of got laughed at. And at that point, I sort of thought, you know what? Yeah, people aren't here to actually learn and engage with the text. They're not here to grow their knowledge. They're here to be preached to, and they're just here to basically go and find something to repeat to others without actually understanding it. And that led me to I need to research this more. I need to actually understand it, because I wanted to be the kind of Christian minister or pastor who could actually explain things. I wanted to be the one who, when the atheists came, I was going to have all the answers for them. You know, I was going to be able to overcome any problem. And ultimately, that led me down to a journey to where I am right now.
So I'm not going to go through and try to line item rebut these things, but I'm just going to tell you, first of all, I do believe in the Big Bang and evolution and all that. And by the way, say hello to my daughter, Leah. Yeah, she just barged in right now. She loves to crash bomb, bomb my sessions here. So anyway,
kids do that.
Yeah. So, by the way, how many kids do you have?
3.
Okay. And we just have the one. She's 3 years old. And okay, so first of all, I would say I both believe in the Big Bang and evolution. I believe those work incredibly well inside of Christianity. God had to create everything somehow, and I don't see anything in the Bible that tells me that the Earth is 6,000 years old. Like I don't even. That's not a position I would even ever think I needed to defend. So there are multiple explanations. Like I said, I'm not going to go in and I'm not going to go in and try to rebut. And
can I ask just a clarifying question there?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So do you? Well, I guess it's possibly 2 questions depending on how you answer it. So do you believe in evolution, human evolution?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Do you also believe in a literal Garden of Eden? An Adam and
Yes,
Eve?
I do. Mm-hmm.
Okay. How do you work that into your worldview? How does that work for you?
Well, first of all, I wasn't there, so there's a bit of speculation as to what actually is going on there in far as the Garden of Eden. I would say, if you're asking me my opinion, having read the scriptures and having analyzed several different things, I would say what you have going on is multiple creations. And for instance, I would say Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 both have 2 separate creations. And what you have is God creating like a pure bloodline, which is what picks up in Genesis 2. Because there's a lot of things I could tell you, but one of them is just like the order is completely wrong. And there's things like God giving them every if you just look, I mean, I don't want to go through this because this would take a really long time to explain this to you, and I'm kind of being the one interviewing you, but I would say this, it's pretty clear in my opinion that these are not the same scenarios that are going on. So you talked about ancient aliens and stuff. I kind of believe in something similar to that, because I believe that it is very possible, maybe even likely, that some of the gods like Poseidon or Hercules or Ganesh maybe have existed, and they would have been like some hybrid between humans and maybe like angels or demons, which is what you see in Genesis 6. You see that some of the demons come down and interbreed with humans, so they make some kind of hybrid species. So I think those would have appeared to gods as people. So I believe that maybe like Osiris or maybe some of these gods were real. I don't know the extent of that. I'm not closed off to think that there's not any other kind of sub species or extra species there, but it's a little bit nuanced. But I would say I don't really find him contradictory to hold both of those views. So if you were interviewing me, we could talk about this for a really long time, but I would like to go on to the second question.
Yeah, sure.
Now, this is some of this stuff. If I were to ask you a question, let's just say I'm going to speculate this question to you, and it's not meant to entrap you. It's a legitimate question, and I'm going to ask you this. And there's no real way for you to answer this question, okay? Because it's kind of like, what's your guess? So you seem like an intelligent bloke, an intelligent person. You seem like someone who could wrestle with an existential crisis and like emerge out of it and be like a stronger person than before you went into it. Would that be a correct assessment about you?
Oh, yeah, I think I'm fairly capable of dealing with, yeah.
Right. So a question I will pose to you is, if I took atheism at the level that you have, like a number 7, and I presented that to your average Joe Blow 6-pack or 6-pint. I'm sorry, I want to be culturally sensitive because that's what you guys drink down there. 6-pint.
Actually, no, we don't drink pints.
What do you guys
drink? And I host a show called Six Pack, so we can go.
I'm actually having a beer right now because I was a little bit nervous about coming on your channel, so I want to take a little bit of the nerve away. But
we're friendly.
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit nervous in these. I'm not really an outgoing type, but anyway. So the question is, if I were to present that to your average Joe Blow person, do you believe that would be something harmful to your average person, just your average Joe Blow?
To the average person?
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Okay, good. See, so that's just okay. So that's just a question. I'm just asking your opinion on this. And this one,
that's not to say it wouldn't be harmful to everyone, because I'm not going to discount that for some people, religion can have a positive benefit. And for some people, I think losing their faith could have a terrible effect on their, I guess, mentally on them. I know what it did to me. It was horrific losing my faith. But I think for the average person, yes, and I believe that the benefit outweighs the detriment in the vast majority of cases.
Okay, that's good. So that's an honest question. And so the next question is genuinely, I'm genuinely asking you this because I don't think you're going to be able to answer this question accurately. In fact, I know you can't. But this is just asking for a gauge for you. Okay.
Challenge.
But what?
It sounds like a challenge.
Well, it's kind of. Yeah. This is a bit of an unfair question for me to ask you because there's no way for you to really answer this unless you were God. But what percentage of ministers do you believe have lost their faith and remain in the profession for financial stability?
I would say a fairly small percentage. I do think that there's people who probably didn't have faith prior to getting into ministry, but learnt that it can be a lucrative gig in the right circumstances. Look, there are people certainly who ministry is all they've done. Especially if they've been pastoring a church for 20, 30 years. They don't have another skill set that's marketable.
Right.
Life and their entire identity revolves around that. But ultimately, I believe it would be a fairly low percentage.
Would you say under 10%?
Oh, definitely.
Okay. So, we interviewed. So I normally have an atheist co-host, and we normally interview other people. Unfortunately, he's really sick right now, and my other one just had a little Sheila. And for anyone outside of Australia, that's a female, a Sheila, and a bloke is a male. But he just had.
It's probably what we called women 40 years ago. It's a bit of an outdated term.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So he had a young girl. So he's been out of commission like the last month. So, I've been kind of shorthanded here the last month or so. But anyway, actually, my other co-host has been sick for the last couple of months. He has really bad illness. So
I'd offer to pray for him, but I don't think it'll work.
Good one. That guy, though, when we interviewed, we were talking about the college dilemma, the Bible college dilemma, and about how Bible college doesn't really prepare anyone when their lives are not centered around like the Bible. Like if they get out of ministry or they deconvert or whatever, they're kind of just like screwed, honestly. So I know many guys who I went to school with who are like plumbers, or like one of my friends is like a Coke delivery driver. Like you're just kind of out. You got to feed. You got to eat your family. Got to eat. So it's kind of like I had to do things like teaching English as a second language just because I had no other marketable skill set. So I totally get what you're saying. But anyway.
I think it can depend on the Bible college. I know there's some that, some of the skills I learnt in Bible college I still use to this day.
Really?
I actually learned some really good marketing and sales skills, neuro-linguistic programming, how to convey and how to talk to people, how to engage people, which I've used in, I'll do business consulting and get up in front of, 50, 100 business owners and be able to present. So I did learn some marketable skills, and certainly moving forward and getting into history, having a bit of a biblical foundation hasn't hurt me, even though it's ancient history isn't my area of expertise. But I think it can depend on the college. I think you get some that are just purely going to drum the Bible into you, without the other skills that go into ministry, whether that's, a compassion, sort of being able to, not compassion, I'm having a mental blank here, counseling, sorry, being able to,
Okay.
So there are other skill sets that I think,
Right.
well, how marketable they are out for someone who's been in ministry outside of that. Well, I'm not too sure, but I mean, if you're running a church as well, you're essentially running a business. So
Yeah.
There's skills that you will pick up there.
So this isn't on here, but I hope you don't mind me catching you with a little
Go for it.
Philosophical question, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Okay. Why is it that Australians feel absolutely no need to pronounce the letter R? Because you're like here, over there, like.
I don't know if that's right. That could be incorrect.
Like, it's far. Get in the car. Okay, anyway.
That's all right. No, it's so far. Yeah, because I think what actually happened. I think Americans actually double it up for us. You'll go far. So that extra one you're throwing in, you've taken from us.
That is precise. I just did an interview with the bear. Actually, I want to talk to you about this because he's a bear. He uses a bear avatar. He said that same exact thing. But the reason why he uses the bear is because he's afraid of being doxxed. And so for the lay person who has a life and doesn't know what being doxxed is, that's whenever people release private information about you or maybe even your identity. Sometimes, and I just found this out this last week, have you ever heard of swatting?
No.
That's whenever they call the SWAT team.
Yeah, I think that happens in games and stuff like that.
Yeah, literally. And so that's a horrible thing to do, because I'm about like, okay, we could agree, we could disagree, we could maybe not agree on a single thing, but that doesn't mean that we couldn't respect each other and help each other out in time of need. So I have friends who are Jews, who are Muslims, who are atheists, who are agnostics, people from all over the range. And so I don't really care. In fact, I prefer having people who disagree. They introduce new ideas. Whenever I hang around Christians too much, it's like an echo chamber, So I'm not really up for that. But okay,
too boring if everyone agrees, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question is, what would cause you to reconvert back to the light?
You assume you mean Christianity? Absolutely nothing, because Christianity is false.
Okay.
That's as blunt an answer as it's. And I say this with respect to you, but not necessarily respect to the religion. Christianity is not a true religion. If there were an almighty being, unfortunately, it's not or fortunately, however you feel, it's not the Christian God. There's too many inconsistencies in the Bible. There's things that are completely, we can prove false. And the Genesis narrative, if the Genesis narrative doesn't align with evolution, and that creates a big problem, because that leads to no original sin, which leads to no reason for Jesus to die on a cross. which completely negates the entirety of Christianity. But apart from that, historical inconsistencies, there is absolutely nothing that would bring me back to Christianity.
So first of all, that's fine if we agree to disagree on this point.
I didn't think we'd agree on that one, but that's okay. I'd rather give you an honest answer rather than
that's great.
Yeah.
The reason why I wouldn't take offense is because I've experienced Christianity to be true. So if you were to ask me, or you were to say something to the regards that my daughter wasn't real, which I'm actually going to ask you a question related to that, but if you were to ask me, if you were to say something like that, well, I could potentially do something like try to prove it to you, such as just showing she's like a little clone of me, right? I mean, you slap some hair on her and you got me. But if I were to show you like her DNA, our DNA reports, or whatever, and you were to say, oh, well, that could be faked, or I could show you I kept the pregnancy test. You could say, oh, that could be forged. We'd go down that line. To me, that would make absolutely zero relevance to me, because I've actually experienced my daughter and I have a relationship with her. So we could debate some of these things. And some of them, I'll be honest, because I haven't studied the Bible history, I'm not as up to date as I wouldn't be able to have a very intelligent conversation. I mean, I could have a conversation about history in general, some of the methods and some of the limits of studying history, because I am well versed in that. But I just have not. That's not something I'm even interested in, honestly, because maybe one of the reasons why you might want to do something like that is for apologetic reasons, and that's not something I'm even interested in doing. I'm not interested in like trying to debate you, trying to convince you, and then you're going to convert to Jesus Christ afterwards. Like, I don't
think either of us are converting or deconverting after this conversation.
Yeah. So yeah. I'm just telling you. Well, I'm just telling you the reason why that just doesn't register. So you could say whatever you want all day long. That wouldn't affect my relationship with my daughter. Wouldn't affect what I've experienced in my life. You know what I mean? So sure. I appreciate you giving your opinion on that, but don't worry about offending me at all. All right. This is actually okay. This is going to be an interesting change up, and I have actually a little side question to ask you on this one, because one of my atheist co-hosts, we did like a steel manning of each other's positions, where everyone's trying to talk about like the best sides of their position and the worst side of the other person's positions. Well, what we've done with this podcast is first of all, we've attacked the other side's positions, but then we've turned the guns in ourselves, attacked our own positions, and then we've still manned the other side's argument to see what's the best parts of their argument. So what I would say, if I'm looking at this objectively, is if you falsely believe that this is your only life, this is the only thing that you have to experience, that would give you a definite advantage in the carpe diem sense that you got to really cherish this day, because you may not ever have another sunrise with your kid, so it seems like in a short term atheism has a shorter term benefit.
Absolutely.
So do you think that atheism allows one to cherish the day and value life more than a theist? That's the question.
Yes, absolutely it does. And I can say that from personal experience. Look, this is the only life that we've got. I know we'll disagree on that, but that's what it is. So whether you're right, something could happen. My life could expire tomorrow, which makes every day, every second, every week, every month, every year all the more precious. Life is so much more precious to me now, because before I had a life after death insurance plan where, okay, well, this is just the trial life and I'm going to get through to the main event, which is the forever life. But this is it. And that was hard for me to deal with. That was the hardest thing for me to deal with. Oh, yeah. The whole non-existence thing, that really messed me up coming out of religion, because I think I would have rathered a literal hell than non-existence. And, that really caused me issues. But then I just realized, why worry about that? Because every second I've got here, why waste my time worrying? Why waste my time on all this just irrelevant rubbish. This is it. This is the life I've got. I'm going to make sure it's the best life. I'm going to live on by leaving a legacy for and with my children and any grandchildren and so on, and just do the best I can do, you know. So that if I were to expire tonight, well, I know that I've done everything I can do to live the best life I possibly can.
Really? You'd probably be the only person I've ever met who could actually say that. But if you are, then I give you major props, because I think we all could do more. I could probably do 10 times more, honestly.
Yeah, look, but the thing is, you can only do your best. I think, yes, everyone can do more, but I mean, you've got to prioritize your life. I mean, we could all go out. I mean, we could sell everything and go and feed starving children in Africa. But if I do that, then I sacrifice time with my family. And there is a bit of selfishness in there. But for me personally, my life is precious, and I want to make sure that I get the most out of it in whichever way I can.
Okay, so we're gonna bring this back to your. We're not gonna go anything personal with your kids, but
sure.
I do want to ask you something. This is a genuinely serious, like, an honest question. This is not a gotcha. This is not like entrapment right here. But so Ryan Reynolds, Ryan Reynolds, Canadian. I guess you guys are both. Yeah, you guys are both part of the Commonwealth. So
absolutely
right. Yeah,
God save the Queen.
What was that?
God save the Queen.
God save the Queen. God save the Queen.
Zeus save the Queen. Whoever you worship, save the Queen.
Yeah, it's interesting. So the guy who's really sick right now, he's Canadian. And it's amazing because we can have conversations and we will get 100% of the cultural references. Unless he says the word about, I'll never know that he's Canadian. They say like the wheel to boot, like it's really weird. But if I talk to Canadian, then if I talk to someone from the UK, the cultural references are like bloke, Sheila, chap. Like I'm not going to get any of those. Well, I will, but other people wouldn't, because I've lived overseas for 10 years, So there is that, like we're practically cousins, America and Canada. So, but anyway, so he Ryan Reynolds is in a movie recently where he's like an avatar, I guess, in a game. He's a computer.
Yep. I haven't seen it, but I know which one you mean.
I'm not a nerd, so I don't play.
He's an NPC, a non-player.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah, I'm not a nerd, so I don't play games, but I don't play those kind of computer games. Sorry, that's a joke, bad joke. But anyway, he essentially finds out that he's a what?
NPC, non-player character.
Okay, so he finds out that he's a non-player character, and some of the characters he's interacting with are, what do you call them when they get plugged in?
Player characters.
Just player characters.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't want to give away any sports. I haven't seen the movie, but if you were to find out that scenario, let's say you were to find out that you were a simulation and your children were a simulation, do you think that would be something detrimental to inform your kids? Like, would you want to inform them about that reality? Or do you think they would be better off to be spared from that fact that they weren't actually real?
Well, they still would be real, just a different type of real. I have consciousness, so I'm real. So if I'm a computer simulation, I'm a pretty advanced computer simulation, and I'm essentially artificial intelligence. I'm real. They'd be real. We'd be connected still. Would I want to have the conversation with them? Well, it depends at what age they're at and what level of understanding they have. My children are young. I mean, certainly I wouldn't sit down with my youngest because my youngest, for a start, wouldn't have a clue what I'm talking about. Dropping my microphone there. Sorry about that. Wouldn't have a clue what I'm talking about. And, I mean, her life revolves around Paw Patrol and Bluey. And,
Paw Patrol.
So it's not an appropriate conversation to have with someone that age. My oldest, maybe at some point she's pretty clever. Would I have that conversation with her if I discovered that it was an undeniable truth? Yeah, I probably at some point would, if I thought she was able to cope with it.
I've considered writing this like short story about like a father who's getting blackmailed because he it comes to his attention. Okay, so someone is blackmailing him because of the fact that he finds out that the world is a simulation, and he absolutely believes that if his daughter finds out, that it will be like totally devastating. And just to give you a little context, this isn't totally an original idea, but because if you take a look at the Matrix, I believe part two, there's like an Indian guy, and he's trying to get his daughter somehow. He's trying to get her out of the Matrix or something
the
somehow.
train station. Yep.
Yeah, I really do not remember the. So the idea though is that I don't know. Personally, if that were me, I would do everything. I would pay off whatever whatever bribes or whatever I would have to make sure my daughter wouldn't find out. And I got to be honest with you, it's the same exact thing as if I found out that atheism. I don't know how I would ever find out that atheism was true, because to me it's not a provable premise. So it might be something I might, even if I were to be convinced of, it's not something that I would want to project to my daughter, because she would have to go down and travel the world and experience other religions the way that I have. I mean, I'm tattooed like head to toe, all the world religions, and I've got to go into Palestine, experience Islam with the Muslims in a mosque, experience Shabbat like with the Jews, and stay at a Buddhist temple here in South Korea. I've got to experience a lot of things. I wouldn't want to rob my daughter of an experience that she would have to go through, you know. But if I were to become convinced about atheism, I would do whatever I could to make sure that my daughter would not discover that. So, what is your, as a father and as someone who wants to naturally want to protect your child, how does that play in as far as wanting to convey your ideas, maybe, or your beliefs to your children, and not wanting to, in the same way that it's not right that my mom would force me to go to Bible college, strong arm me, you know? In that same exact way, how do you what are your thoughts about conveying your ideas to your children and not wanting to live for them, right?
Well, I've lived this. I have
Okay.
absolutely lived this.
Mm-hmm.
My oldest, so my two youngest, they were too young. But my oldest certainly remembers going to church,
Mm-hmm.
remembers going to Sunday school, and remembers that. And it wasn't an easy conversation to have with her. But it's a conversation we had, because with children, and certainly the way I treat mine, I guess, or
Mm-hmm.
my parenting theory, I'm honest with them. We had to explain to her why we weren't going to church. We
Mm-hmm.
had to explain
Wow.
to her why we weren't praying.
Mm-hmm.
And what we said to her was, we don't believe anymore, and that's okay. If you still want to believe, you are allowed to believe, and we won't stop you. If you still want to go to church, we're happy to take you to church. But we don't believe, and there's a number of reasons. And she asked some questions, as best. I think she was 7 or 8 at the time,
Mm-hmm.
as best someone that age can. And we explained it to her in a way that she would understand.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was probably a little bit sad for her at first, and a little bit confusing. But I guess it's the same as at that age, they're kind of prepared for things like this, because that's about the age you kind of get the gist on Santa Claus, the
Santa's not.
bunny.
God, I
And
hate whenever people compare Jesus with Santa. That so annoys me so much. But
well, I know
I
that's
get
because
what
we've
you're
got
saying.
evidence of Santa, but we won't go there. That was a joke, by the way.
Yeah,
It's
that's good. I was internally laughing.
good, good.
You were laughing at my jokes concerning the pints and the, so I don't feel obligated to laugh to your jokes.
Oh, yeah, I was definitely right. But look, you've got to be honest with your kids. I don't want to have the kind of relationship. I mean, look, it's when my kids do something wrong,
Mm-hmm.
um, they'll get in trouble for what they've done wrong. But what I tell them is worse is if they lie to me about it.
Right,
So,
right.
so if there's someone's drawn on the wall,
Mhm.
they're going to get in trouble for that. But then if they say I didn't do it, well, that's even worse. And I let
Right,
them know.
right.
So it would be completely hypocritical of me
Mhm.
to turn around to my children and say you mustn't lie, but then to lie to them for years about religion, because at some point they're going to work it out. They're going to go,
Sure.
well, hang on, if mum and dad are these big Christians, well, why do they never go to church? Why don't they pray? Hang on a second. And at that
Mhm.
point, it's I don't.
No.
I would not want to live a lie with my kids. I've got a great relationship with my kids. My kids are really well adjusted.
Mhm.
Um, they inquire. They want to learn. They want to know.
Mhm.
My oldest, she's come out of this brilliantly. Like, she's such a creative kid. She's such an inquisitive kid. She wants to read things. She wants to learn. She wants to understand. It's great. And for my two youngest, well, they really don't have a concept of religion.
You're right.
It's never been
Well,
around.
well, it's funny. I was in a conversation. I believe the bear, the Aussie who was a bear, and I may be wrong about this,
Hmm.
but he said that his children are atheists just because they don't know any better. I thought that was so funny
Yeah.
that he referred to his kids as atheists because, I mean, it's interesting. First of all, I've heard stories of parents who would actually drive their kids to school, who are atheists, or drive their kids to Sunday school, take them to Sunday school, and wait out in the parking lot. And I thought that was like weird. They wanted them to get the education, and I had another conversation uh with another guy on this channel, and I asked him what he thought if his kids would were to convert to Christianity, because he's an atheist, and he goes, well, do you want cheese with that pizza? Like, what kind of topping? He's like, it would be like inconsequential. And it was
Yeah.
amazing because he told me that he keeps the Quran and he keeps the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita uh, in his house. He says, I keep all these copies, and if the kids, if they want to read it, he's like, I'm okay with that. And he's like, they haven't asked me like to go to church, but he's like, if they want to go to church, I will take them to church, because this is along the lines of what I was telling you, like, about the reason why I want to indoctrinate my daughter is because I don't want to rob her of an experience of finding God, like, on her own.
Hmm.
For me, my parents were robbing me because they were forced. I gave an analogy, like in Uganda, when the they take the bottles of milk and they like shove it down the kids' throats. So they want the kids to be fatter because that's like a sign of a beauty in Uganda. But that's like what they were doing to me, and it made me reject it. It made me, and I don't want to do something that's gonna turn my daughter off. So it's a big part. It's probably the most central part of my life. So it's not like it's not going to be an issue, because
Kids will
it's
naturally
definitely
rebel against their parents.
right. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Hey, so that means your kids are going to become Christians. Just to let you know.
Hey, there's a lot worse out there. It's so long as my daughter doesn't want to start wearing a hijab, we're okay. If she became Muslim, that would be fine. But if it's the more oppressive parts of religion, I certainly have an issue with.
Sure.
Even if my daughter were to become a Christian, I would hope that she wouldn't be forced to not be able to lead. I
Right,
would
right.
hope that some of the older doctrines of Christianity, or some of the more traditional Orthodox doctrines, wouldn't influence it. But you know what? It's my kids can believe whatever they want to
Right,
believe.
right. That's good. I respect that. By the way, if you want to have a round two where you can get more thoroughly into asking me these questions, I not intentionally was dodging them. I just I'm trying to think. I'm not sure if I've had an experience with someone who was actually either studied to be a minister, or went through the route that you did, who actually deconverted. It actually reminds me of Mel Gibson, who's an Aussie, right? Mel Gibson, and
Actually, he's American.
well, he grew up in Australia, though, right?
Yeah,
His family were
yeah,
mission. I think they were they were the missionaries, or they were either missionaries or they were like with the embassy or something. But I definitely know he spent some years in Australia. I
yeah. No,
definitely know
we've definitely given him back to you. He's
that.
all yours, Mel. You can have
Well,
Mel Gibson back.
I will gladly take what was that? Worthington, Sam Worthington.
Sam Worthington. Yep.
Worthington. Okay, we'll keep him. You could probably have Orlando Bloom back.
Well, he's English.
Really, I thought he's from the UK. I mean, I thought he was from Australia.
No, he's English. Okay. He's from the UK. Yep.
All right. See, is anyone else who would like to give back to you? Oh no, Nicole Kidman. Okay, she's definitely a keeper.
Most people try and give us Ken Ham back, but we're not having Ken Ham back. No chance. We kicked him out for a good reason.
Touche. Hey, I really want to thank you for this conversation. It's been very enlightening, and I hope it's going along well for you.
Yeah, no, this is all good.
This might get a little bit contentious, and this hopefully we can put a little bit of fireworks out there in the ether, because this is maybe a little bit too civil. Let's see if we can spice things up a little bit. But
I can amp it up if you want.
Do you believe that atheism can harm people? I think we already covered that a little bit, but
yeah, some people. Look, it depends on the person and the situation. It's Christianity can harm people. Cake can harm people. It depends on the person and the situation. Look, you get some people who I think that the mental trauma from leaving religion may be too much for them. Mm-hmm. I've got a friend, and I would hate to see what would happen to him if he left religion, because I know that prior to becoming a Christian, he was in a really bad place. And I see that his life has turned around, and it's, I think, it's nothing supernatural, but it's certainly just the fact that he's got a community. And I question whether he'd get the same type of community and that same kind of support that keeps him on a better pathway if there wasn't a church involved. So for him, if I wouldn't try and convert him, I don't really try and convert anyone anyway, unless I get plenty of people try and convert me and we have a conversation and they leave a little bit awkward. But look, there's some people, I don't think you can throw a blanket on. But as far as the majority of people, no, I think if the world was atheist, I actually think it'd be a much better place.
Really?
Absolutely.
I obviously completely do not agree with that. Obviously, several reasons. First of all, I mean, just for the fact that I do not believe that it is it's the truth. That is a very big stretch to think that you could have some disagreements about something, or maybe not even understand it. It could be that you understand, it could be that you genuinely have some kind of things that you may think are irreconcilable that are just completely reconcilable due to the fact that you don't know, let's say you don't know the original language, or maybe you don't know some other facts that would totally fill in another part of a story that you just don't know. You know what I mean? So I mean, even
can I throw one example at you?
What was that?
Can I throw one example at you? And it's one that you should be familiar with.
Sure, good.
All right. Who was Jesus' grandfather? So Joseph, father of Jesus.
Yeah.
Who was his grandfather?
I have no idea. I mean, I'll be the first to say I have no idea why that's like that. So I've heard the Christian explanations, and they make no sense.
The Christian explanations are terrible a lot of the time.
Yeah. But I'll be honest about that. I'm not going to try to say that Christianity is flawless. I mean, there might be some language issues that are going on, or what I have heard is there's something related to the fact that one line is being traced from the mother and one line is being traced from the father. I really have no idea. I mean, I'll just say I literally have no idea about that issue.
Yeah.
To be quite honest, it's not really relevant to me one way or the other. But that's not the, if I took an hour or 5 hours to try to resolve that, I feel like that would be a waste of my time. So I don't get involved in apologetics. Like, that's not something I'm interested in, you know?
But is the truth important to you?
The truth? Absolutely.
So wouldn't you want to be sure?
But as it is, the way that I believe is, well, let's start here. have you ever seen or read the book The Invisible Gorilla?
No.
Have you ever heard of the experiment where they're throwing the basketball and you're supposed to count how many times they throw the passes, and then a gorilla walks out and beats his chest and then walks off the camera?
No.
Have you ever seen it? Okay. So let me phrase this for you. Let me set this up for you. So this police officer was chasing a robbery suspect, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And as he's trying to run him down, right by where he's doing this, some officers are beating a suspect, like really bad, okay? And he's like jumping a fence and he's trying to find this guy. And then they do like this internal investigation, because I guess they might have hurt the guy really bad. And they have like a code of silence among the police officers. So like nobody was saying who was actually beat that guy, right? So what they concluded though was that whoever or that guy must have crossed the pass right there, and he must have seen what was going on. Okay. So it's called like a code of silence among the police. So this experiment was designed to show that when you start focusing on one thing, you can miss information that's like blatantly right in front of you. Okay. So he designed this where, again, you're supposed to count how many passes like the white shirts or the black shirts make. And as you're watching this, literally a gorilla walks out, starts banging his chest, and then he walks off.
Okay, yeah. So like a distraction.
Yeah. So when I read that book and they were referencing that video, I said, there is no way. I will bet money that this has not happened. Lo and behold, though, I went and started showing this video to people, probably at least 60% of the time. A few of them saw it, but 60% of the time they didn't see it, right? So what I'm talking about is that we have blind spots in our cognition, and everything we see as far as what we see about the world and touch and taste, whatever, that's all electricity that our brain is interpreting, right? So the way I start, like with epistemology, is like, as it is, trying to get to truth is pretty damn hard to start off with. Okay, so we kind of just make our best guess on what we know to be true. But especially if you know history, you will definitely know this, that you can only be relatively sure about some things because there's a lot of deduction that takes place in history. And then history is...
No.
Hold on. Let me finish. History is written by people who win wars. So that's the other part.
Not always. No. It's so we can determine a lot of things from history because it's evidence-based. So certainly there's assumptions that can be made. We can piece together evidence and be fairly sure about something. There's things that we have no idea about as well. History is not always written by the victors, though. I mean, there's plenty of history from the globe. Plenty of history is still taught in Germany to this day, and they lost a couple of wars. In fact, pretty much every country has lost a war at some point. America still writes histories on the Vietnam War. They certainly lost that one. So history isn't always written by the victor. History can be influenced by the victor in certain circumstances, but not in a modern historical setting because we've got access to way too much information. Right. Just by sitting here, I don't have to worry about what my government is trying to indoctrinate with me because I can converse with people all around the world. I can research ideas all around the world. Uh-huh. So I do understand the analogy that you're making. But when it comes to the Bible, there's things that are obviously incorrect, things that obviously don't mesh. There's inconsistencies and there's historical reasons. Like Matthew and Luke both being in the Bible is basically because if there wasn't, there would have been a massive schism in the early church because you had the people who were the ones who had Matthew and the ones who had Luke. So fortunately, because most people couldn't read up until only a few hundred years ago, it was never an issue. But as soon as people started reading the Bible, they went, hang on, there's an issue here. And a lot of that thinking happened. But it's not only just that. There are a lot of inconsistencies. And I guess what I would say is the truth is important, I think. Now, look, if you're comfortable and you sort of say, you know what, I'm a Christian, and maybe there's things I don't understand and don't believe, and or that don't mesh. But you know what, I don't care because I like my life and I'm comfortable in my beliefs. Cool, power to you. But to me, the truth is important. To me, I want to know when I was religious or believed in a higher being, I wanted to make sure that if there was a higher being, I was following the right one, because I would imagine that it's probably a worse punishment to be following the wrong God than no God. So
I don't know about that, but
depending on which religion would have been right. I guess if you're a Mormon, then there's a whole other set of beliefs. If you're a Muslim, a Jew, a Hindu, a Buddhist, there's a whole set of beliefs. But really, what it comes down to is beliefs are belief.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the truth?
Yeah. Well, so you were mentioning a lot of modern day history, and obviously it is a lot harder to fake modern day history, right? But that's part of the issue with ancient histories. You have a lot of exaggerations. Okay, so if you read some of the Greek read the Greek historians about how many people died in the battle of Thermopylae. You know what I mean? Like read that and tell me if you think that actually happened. Like it's glorified. It's glorified.
Herodotus and Thucydides, they absolutely they definitely exaggerate things because they're writing in a certain time to a certain audience, and right. their Herodotus in particular is very pro-Athenian in. And you sort of assume that maybe they didn't really get that many Persians. Maybe the Spartans weren't as bad as, but you can look beyond those. But I mean, still at the same time, we can use something like Herodotus and say, well, we can absolutely use that, and we can relay the history that there was a war between Athens and Sparta. Right. We know who the victor was. We know that there was wars between Athens and Persia, because not only do we have these writings from that period of time, but we can also go and archaeologically trace that.
Sure. The point I'm trying to say in that is I'm not saying that those didn't happen, and I'm not calling into question a lot of history. I'm just saying we understand, one, people exaggerate. Two, even you could genuinely believe that you're telling the right story, right? Like, I'm not sure if you've ever seen Brain Games, which is, I believe it's on Netflix right now. It's a result of the work that was done in this movie, in the book that I was telling you about, The Invisible Gorilla. And so they do stuff like this throughout the whole time, man. It's incredible, because what they do is they take this principle and they'll show you, they'll play with your mind for like 20 minutes, and then they'll rewind the tape and they'll show you all of the times that they played with your mind throughout that story, throughout the like 20-minute documentary that you totally missed. Okay.
What if that's what Christianity's doing to you?
What?
What if that's what Christianity is doing to you?
Well, I've experienced Jesus Christ myself, so that's I don't go by professors or pastors, or I've had my own personal experience. So I'm not what modern day Christians tell me, or what pastors or televangelists. I'm not interested. So I get in some conversation like, well, this person does this person does that. Like that has no relevance onto me. I've experienced Jesus Christ. It's changed my life. I've experienced miracles. He's spoken to me. So that's what's relevant to me. Like nothing you're going to tell me, as you said, like we're not going to convince each other. I'm not trying to.
No, we're not going to deconvert each other. But I do want to have an honest conversation with you, and sure. I do want to, it's. I don't just want to sit here and nod and go, oh, I want to have a.
Sure.
So, and I guess on the historical side of things, it's ancient history is easy to put together. In a lot of cases, not in all. There's certainly gaps. The Bronze Age collapse is one of my favourite things because it's such a mystery. Interestingly enough, in the chat, we've got Dr. Josh Bowen, who's actually watching, who's an Assyriologist. Yeah, he's brilliant. Absolutely.
That's smarter than me.
He's a lot smarter than a lot of
Probably
people,
both of us combined.
me included.
What do you have to say?
But look, I guess, and personal experience, I understand personal experience because I had personal experience, and I was very much convinced that I'd had a personal revelation from Jesus, and that's things that sometimes I still sort of go, damn, that really felt real. But by the same token, I'll have Mormon missionaries who will knock on the door, who will tell me that they've had a personal revelation that Joseph Smith was true. I've had Muslims who will tell me that they've had personal revelations that that Muhammad was the final prophet. It's every religion in the world, every belief set, you will find people who have had personal revelation. But what if? I'll throw a complete, and this is not what I believe. What if Hinduism is true, and the revelation you had is actually just actually no, I'll use a better one. What if Norse beliefs are true? Okay, and the revelation you had that you thought was Jesus was just Loki playing a joke?
Yeah. Well, what could it be if? I mean, you could use the same. We could follow this rabbit hole forever. We could say, well, Descartes proposed an evil genius who was manipulating our senses or whatever. So that's what I'm saying. Like you talked about truth. My daughter is obsessed with. Give her dad a kiss. Give her dad like 15 minutes, okay, baby? She's can you see her? I told you what I tell you. She's like a little clone of me, right? Yeah. Throw some hair on her. I'll throw some hair on me. Okay, Leah. Leah, ship open. So that's what I was saying. I'm not trying to specifically with history. It's like, okay, obviously history is not as straightforward as like mathematics or physics or biology, where you can say clearly it's 1 + 1 is going to equal this 2. Right. The point I was trying to tell you about the brain game and the invisible gorilla, because this has more to do with psychology than has to, and sense perception than has to do with actual history. It's just you could genuinely believe that you saw something, and this might be one of the things that I might use to explain away some of the things about the New Testament. Okay, maybe that might be the case of what's going on here. One person genuinely believes that they saw two people, and maybe they saw the person at a direction where it looked like it was one person. That's completely possible to do. So, and if you don't think that's possible, go watch Brain Games and watch. They do things like they show a robbery take place in the first scene, okay? And then later on, you're asked to go back and recall things that you saw from the robbery. And it shows why eyewitness testimony is not reliable, okay? So even if you have like the most cherished thing to have would be like a primary source in history, that's like the holy grail, right? But it's like, okay, even if I grant that, even if someone saw it firsthand and they recorded it, doesn't mean that it's actually accurate, So I mean, as I said, we could go down this, we want to get into epistemology. We could have this a very long conversation on this topic alone.
It depends. It depends on the historical source. Not all sources are equal. There's no two ways about that. I mean, there's argument that you could use the Bible in parts as a primary source where eyewitnesses, but then there's it could also be a secondary source because a lot of it's relayed information. But okay, I'll put it to you this way. Let's use this analogy. Who's the president of the United States of America right now today?
Donald Trump.
Okay, I'm going to say no. This is actually good. No, this is good.
That was a joke. You didn't laugh.
No, that's cool because I was actually going to say that when you said Joe Biden. And the point. Okay, so I'm going to say Joe Biden. Okay. Now, if someone was watching this, and I say Joe Biden's the president, you say Donald Trump's the president. We can't both be right. Only one of us is correct.
Right.
Okay. And that's the point I'm making with Matthew and Luke. Only one of them can be correct.
Okay. Yeah. And I'll just be honest. I don't know how to solve that specific one. Ultimately, it's to me, it's inconsequential. To tell you the honest truth, it's not. I don't even. I wouldn't spend the time necessary to go and try to figure that out.
And that's probably a more honest answer than I get from most people.
Well, but then I also say there's probably some alternative theories, that stuff that's going on in Genesis, and probably some Christians would not be comfortable that. I'm not saying it's entirely true, but it could be the case, as I've talked about Thor, or maybe Loki, or maybe some of these gods actually did exist. I mean, I don't really know how I would know that one way or the other. Is really beyond me. Like, do you know what's going on 1 billion light years from here? You have no way of knowing that. So we know on our best day 1% of the information that's out there in the universe, right? So that's why whenever I approach these issues, I'm like, okay, we'll try to make our best guesstimation and approximation. But you want to even with science and trying to understand the Big Bang, the origin, cosmology of the universe, we can't account for 90% of the material in our own solar system. So, and not in our solar system, in the Milky Way. So we have like some really big gaps that are out there that we don't know for sure yet. So I recognize that. I mean, I appreciate it. Yeah. You want to get in there?
I was going to say that's. I would defer to my friends who are more scientifically adept. I'm certainly not one of them, but I would very strongly disagree with you on that. But I'm not a scientist, but I hang around with enough scientists to know that that's probably not accurate.
So it's not accurate that 90% of the Milky Way is cannot be accounted for, or at least we'll say it's dark matter. You're saying that's not true?
No. I have no idea. I don't think 90% of the Milky Way is dark matter, from my limited understanding of science. And I mean my limited understanding. This is not my area of expertise.
Yeah.
I'm happy to have a look at the chat. I know I can see Dr. Matt's in there, who he could answer that. I can't. But I've seen similar arguments. Yeah.
Well, I have a friend, who's a physicist, and sometimes we drink, and he explains to me some of these mysteries that physicists either have a hard time solving, or stuff that he tells me probably we're never going to be able to solve.
Dark matter can be accounted for, though.
Okay. Well, okay, it can be accounted for, but we don't know exactly what it is. Okay, so that's the point. It's dark matter, but what is dark matter? So if you don't know what it is, then that's not really accounting for it. So anyway, so the point. I don't know if that's
accurate, but anyway, let's move forward. Yeah.
But the point you're saying is that you want to get to the truth. I want to get to the truth as well. But I'm very well aware of, if I only know what 1% of what there is to know in the universe, chances are in that other 99%, there's a lot of stuff that would make my ideas seem totally ridiculous had I known them. So that's like the idea of empathy, is that we understand I'm dealing with you. I can't see you right now. I can't touch you. But I know that you're in the same position as you. Maybe you're a few years old. You said you're 40. Okay, you're a year older than me. If you were 60 years old, maybe you'd have some information that I don't have. And so the idea of RHE podcast is to try to examine things from other people's perspectives, try to learn things from them, and try to be respectful and say, I don't have the answer. I'll be the first to admit I don't have the answers to probably at least half the things. If you want to get down into some of this stuff about, I'm sure if Bowen would question me for.
Oh no! And look,
I'm not
trying to stop you.
I'm the wrong guy to answer these questions.
No, but I'm also trying to explain. Yeah, because I went from a journey of someone who, look, my life was planned out really well. I was going to be a pastor. I was in with the right church organization and movement. I would have had a very, very successful career in that. For me to walk away was quite a big deal. And I guess I'm trying to explain some of that, because I think one thing that atheists do wrong is they just go, show me the evidence. There is no evidence. I like to go the other way. I like to say, well, hang on, yeah, let me show you the evidence rather than just do. I think it's a lazy argument. Oh, I'm an atheist because I don't believe. I actually don't think that's atheism. But I'm not going to get into that debate right now because I'll get a lot of angry tweets about that. But I think it's important for people to be able to explain their positions. And like I said, I'm not going to say anything that's going to change your mind here. But we might have an interesting conversation along the way. And
Sure.
I like throwing these thoughts out there because I like to understand what the other side thinks. I like to, maybe I've got a thought that's wrong. Maybe there's something that can be explained that I haven't thought of because I haven't thought of everything. I can assure you of that. It's so I'm always interested in those conversations.
Right. Well, I will put it this way. Okay. Have you ever seen the show The Outer Limits?
No, I've heard of it.
You've heard of it? Okay.
It's like the
there's
Phantom
one
or the
show
Twilight
that
Zone or something, isn't it?
happened in the 2000s, and it starred Gary Busey, the crazy like Trumpster guy. I'm trying to think of the name of it, but anyway, in this one, he's like he plays some televangelist guy, and he's using like these fake healing methods and stuff like. It's actually he's a parody of that Popov guy, who was like they were filling out forms, and then they were like feeding him the information through his mic. Did you ever hear? I think it's Peter Popov.
Oh yeah.
So,
I bet that was Benny Hinn, wasn't it?
No, his name was Peter Popov. But anyway, he was a parody of that guy. And so what he finds out is that this alien comes down and that he wants to learn his methods of like persuasion. And he's like, I want you to teach me. I'll pay you all this money, right? And so he doesn't know that he's an alien initially, but what he winds up learning is that this guy's an alien, and the alien explains to him is that he says we're like another species, and there's no way in the world we have enough resources to conquer your planet. So the only thing that we could hope to do is to like enslave you guys somehow, and religion they saw would be the best way to do that, to where they could gain control over the people, right? And I do believe there's some rational. What was that?
Probably a very good methodology, yeah.
Yeah, totally. Which is why you see people like atheists like Jim Jones or Kim Il Sung might go to church and see some things about Christianity, like, wow, I can hijack this.
Kim Il Sung is definitely religious.
Well, but okay, so his mom was actually this week we spent some time with people on the podcast with the guy who lived in there for 3 months on a food program with the Obama administration. So he himself was an atheist. What I'm saying is that he saw their religiosity as something that could be hijacked, and he took elements of worship and incorporated it into the state of North Korea, which I've been there a couple of times, so I've seen it firsthand. So same thing with Jim Jones, who, as I said, was an atheist. He went to church as a boy and like, wow, people are revering this pastor. Even if I don't believe in it myself, I could hijack this and use it. Okay. Anyway, sorry, bit of a sidetrack there, but the point is that you could find something out, like maybe aliens do exist, and maybe they're using religion to try to enslave us. And if you were to find out a fact like that, all of our thoughts about religion and my thoughts about Christianity would become completely irrelevant. I'm just using an extreme example here, but you could find out something about like history or something, a fact that would totally change what you think is true or right, So it's like maybe what's out in that other 99% that we've talked about would totally eviscerate the views that we have, that what we stand on. So that's like,
funny enough, that's exactly what happened to me that's how I walked away from religion.
Okay.
My worldview got thrown upside down. What I thought was right wasn't. That was that's a big deal when that happens. It's a big deal.
Yeah, well, I would love to unpack that in a separate episode, because that was this is kind of a lot to unpack in a single episode. And I know you're asking me some stuff there. If you would like to run it back, do a round 2. Do you like a McGregor? We'll do like a round 2 and then do like a tiebreaker. That would be fun to do because I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yes.
And yeah, do you have any last thoughts?
I'd be pretty interested doing a round 2, I guess, where I ask you a few, if you're up for it.
Yeah.
I'd be more than happy to do that. You know, I'd like to get your rationale on a few things. Why not?
You're probably going to hear a whole lot of I don't know, but
okay,
that's just the truth. It's like I don't know. I don't know the answer to everything.
Well, look, one thing that you said, and I respect. Actually, a lot of things you've said I respect. A couple I'll point out. First is that you are looking for the truth. So the truth is important to you. The second thing is that there's a lot of things that I guess you don't think are necessarily worth looking into, and it doesn't affect your faith. And I respect that. And I guess I'd like to know where that line is. I'd be interested in that line.
Yeah, we could definitely discuss that on a round 2, as we said. I have maybe some, I definitely unorthodox positions because I might take some stances like on the LGBT issues that you might find interesting because it's like, I'm kind of like, I just get stuck in some in between roads where it's like, I'm not agreeing with the Christians on this, but I'm also not agreeing with like, maybe like the liberals or the secular humanists. So it's like, I get stuck in kind of like, okay, like my position, okay, I do believe in evolution, but I also do believe in creationism. So I believe God would have had to create it somehow. So to me, that seems the most logical way.
Old Earth creationism. It's a pretty common position. Actually, it's pretty sensible position.
Yeah, there's people who are, and I don't understand it because that's not even a position. If I'd pick up the Bible and I'd read it, that's not even a position I would feel like I would need to adopt. Like it's not something that's central to the gospel. It's like Jesus resurrecting from the dead. That would feel like something I would absolutely need to stake. Like I got to put that flag in the sand and say like I'm going to die on this hill, because if that crashes, then everything else crashes. You know.
So you believe Jesus definitely resurrected?
Yeah, but I mean, you probably, I mean, you wouldn't accept my explanations, but I'm telling you, I've experienced Jesus Christ firsthand. Like, so the philosophy, the logic, the science, whatever, that is all secondary. It's like if I experience my daughter, I've experienced my daughter's love, how it's utterly changed my life. That is something that is just, it's transcendent. It's absolutely transcendent. So what I've experienced with Jesus Christ, it's transcended anything else that I've experienced. So I would say that Jesus has actually been more real to my daughter than me. She's been more real to Jesus has been more real than my daughter to me. Okay, because I've experienced him in a deeper way than I have my own daughter, and so
that's why religion is dangerous.
Well, I think atheism is a lot. I mean, maybe we'll talk about it next time, but I definitely believe that. I will leave you on the last point. Okay, so yeah, we could make some last statements, but atheists love to say, well, we're going to switch the burden, or no, the burden of proof lies solely on Christians, and I understand that. Like, if you were to tell me that there's a box of chocolates in the refrigerator or something like that, and you're going to say, well, okay, well, I would tell you, well, okay, you can go and prove it, right? The burden of proof is on you, okay. And as atheists say, well, bigger claims require bigger amounts of proof, correct? Like if I told you I had an invisible dragon or something like that. That's what people say. Yeah. So I don't really see how atheists say, well, we're gonna make a proposition that is gonna have some very, very dire implications behind it, and we don't have any of the burden of proof on us, because what you're saying implicitly, let me finish. Some things follow implicitly that we wouldn't have souls, right? You've conceded that, So if a mother has lost a child, maybe it is true, maybe it's not the case that we have souls. But if you're going to make that claim and you're going to say there's no way in the world you're ever going to see your child again, I would say that burden shifts back over to you, because now you're making a claim that has the potential to seriously cause some damage in this person's life. So if you don't have any evidence one way or the other, whether or not we have souls or whether or not there is a God, that seems like the burden of proof gets shifted back onto you whenever certain things are going to follow implicitly, like human life does not have any intrinsic value. It's objective value.
So let's quickly unpack that.
Yeah.
So the first thing I'll say is I actually adopted a different approach here tonight. I wasn't putting the burden of proof on you. Actually, I was explaining and offering evidence. Oh man, I'm really stuck on what you said before, and I don't know if you meant to say what you said about Jesus being more real to you than your daughter. But to me, that's sad. That's really sad.
Well, you have no idea how I've experienced Jesus. So how you would say that one way or the other is again, this has to do with you're not me, so you don't know what I've experienced.
No, right? and
you don't know that.
And to me, that's one of the sad parts of religion, and I see, and it's certainly not a comparable thing, but I see the way that, say, in certain Middle Eastern countries, people treat their children. I see where honor killings and things like that, all in the name of religion, where people put a deity before their own flesh and blood. That's wrong. That is just that is wrong. And if that is what a God is about, I don't want anything to do with that God. Right. That's horrible to me. Right. It's and I'm not saying that you're a horrible person, but like, please don't take it that way. But that analogy, I mean, I've seen your daughter. She's cute. Beautiful. She runs. She waves.
Hello, she's my daughter. Hello.
She's and I guarantee that you love her like there's no tomorrow. I know how I feel about my children,
and that's how I feel about God. Exactly.
And that's just
reality.
That to me is sad.
Reality is not contingent upon my daughter's existence. Like my daughter's not holding the universe together. The universe did not come about from my daughter. So in that sense, God is a lot more real. It's like not even relatively close.
And the day I met my daughter was the day my universe began.
How old are you?
How old am I? I'm 40.
No. How old were you when your daughter? You said you met your daughter.
When I met my daughter, 28.
28. I was a few years older than you. And so she's 12 now?
11, yeah.
11. And yeah, you want to tell me that moment? I know you said you didn't want to talk too much about your kids, but I think that would be a good.
It was the most amazing thing. It's my life changed in that second. And it's with my other two children. It's just, every second they are my universe. They are my everything. And I can't comprehend putting anyone or anything before them. You know what the meaning of life is? The meaning of life for me is to protect those children, to give them the best, to give them everything, to give them every opportunity to succeed. That's what life's all about.
Yeah.
Life's not about I want to say this respectfully, and don't take offense to it, because this isn't an attack on you. I respect you and your right to believe. I don't respect your religion. I don't respect
atheism. It's perfectly fine.
And that's cool. That's cool. It's a belief in atheism or lack of, or however you want to term it, doesn't affect me.
Yeah.
But anything that demands that you put it first before your child or your children, that's something that is fundamentally evil. And I'm so glad that doesn't exist.
Yeah, well, I mean, I believe that atheism is not only wrong because it's not true, but I believe it generally does hurt a lot of people. I genuinely believe that. So we definitely have just a fundamental disagreement on this issue, and that's fine.
I'd love to hear maybe in our next conversation. I'd love for you to unpack that. I would like to hear your thoughts on that, because I'm more than happy to sit back and potentially reflect on those points that you might make. Absolutely. It's I'm really stuck on that one though. I'm really stuck on that.
Well, I will tell you this. So I want to end off something positive here. I love this. Got a little contentious, but it's all good. It's all great. So I was. What was that?
This is fun. This is a very easy conversation. This isn't a.
Just do not put me up with Josh Bowman. Like I would clean my clock. So I would never go up with someone like Joe. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good with that. But So I met my wife 10 years ago. In fact, we just celebrated our 10th year anniversary. But I was a very broken and very hurt individual when I met her. And within a year, we were divorced. I spent my wedding night in a tub of vomit to where I couldn't even crawl out of it. I had to wait for an hour to even get sober enough to be able to get out of it. But I went back to America, and this day, 5/16, Jesus Christ, I've alluded to it, but he spoke to me. He told me who he was. He revealed himself to me. He showed me his love for me, which is much greater than I could ever love my daughter. It's true. I mean, I've seen it. He showed it to me. He showed it to me, and that love has changed my life. And when about 5 years after that, after I was divorced from my wife, I came back to South Korea, and my wife got pregnant the night I got back. And so it's been an amazing journey that I've been on. It's been far from perfect, but yeah, I remember when I saw my daughter's picture. I have the picture. I'm just like, wow, this is unbelievable. I couldn't believe that I made that little perfect being. You said you saw how beautiful she is. She's my daughter, so obviously she's beautiful. But yeah, she's
seems like she's got a really cool personality.
It's like I wouldn't have her if it wasn't for God. And it's like I cannot reverse that same logic. I cannot invert that same logic. Like if I didn't have my daughter, I might have another daughter. Okay, my like reality and contingency, all of that is not based on my daughter's existence. That's what I was trying to say to you. Like that's you may have taken it the wrong way, and I know that I love my daughter to death. I know I'd die for her in a heartbeat. I respect what the criticisms you might think that you heard, but I will say I have my daughter because of God. So I would have been divorced from my wife had I not had that invention. There's no way I would have been able to be a husband prior to that. So I'm so grateful for the difference that he's made in my life. And I'm just, that's my last thoughts. You have any last thoughts?
Yeah. Always seek the truth and be prepared to accept that there's things that you don't know, and be prepared to accept that you could be wrong.
Sure.
That's my motto. That's I stick to that to this day. I'm more than happy to be proven wrong, or but look, I've enjoyed this conversation.
Absolutely.
It's been interesting. Not what I expected, which is good.
I'm not sure if you do a fist bump or you throw maybe you just might throw a boomerang or hit your partner, but we do like a fist bump in America.
So no, we got the fist bump here, but when we finish, okay. we
oh, make it explode.
Oh, you got to we everything. Yeah.
So for our listeners, let's just plug each other's channels. Well, actually, can you plug your channel?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, there's some of you who are watching it right now live. So my main channel is Hereticals. So Hereticals is a group of different people of a few different beliefs and thoughts that get together and have a good time. We have Friday Night Six Pack, which is I guess a bit of a light variety show with a focus on religion and secular thoughts. But my co-host is a Buddhist, so that's always interesting.
Yeah, beers.
And we have a few different shows that are coming up. But look, there's always something on the channel. Hereticals, you'll find it there. There's plenty on. The idea is it's a safe space for everyone, regardless of what your thoughts are on religion, politics, whatever. We're always open to just hanging out and having a chat and not yelling each other down, listening to each other.
Yeah, you got an incredibly soothing voice. Let's say that. Wow. And anything you say in like an Aussie or UK accent just naturally sounds better. I will say that.
I don't know about the UK accent, but definitely the Australian accent is the perfect accent. It's we refined it quite well.
Yeah, and my podcast is RT Podcast. Normally have an atheist as a co-host to try to. The way I explain it is like if I'm looking in the world with one eye, with my one perspective, right here, I can't see what's going on over here. And I'll even use a scientific analogy. When scientists are trying to see how far a star is, they will take a picture. They will take a picture of the star, and exactly 6 months later, while the Earth is on the other side of the sun, they'll take another picture, and they used trigonometry to check out the. It's called the parallax switch, mm-hmm. and it shows them how far away something is. And so for me, I think the best way. We can disagree with stuff, but I can definitely. I've learned from people. I've learned from Muslims down in Palestine, learning about prayer and their devotion to God, and seeing the way that they cleanse themselves and celebrating Shabbat in Israel. I've seen things that I've genuinely learned from them and Buddhists inside a Buddhist temple here in South Korea. So I think we can learn from each other. We don't need to dehumanize each other and demean each other. And we can have honest disagreements. Maybe in 5 years, maybe you might adopt my beliefs. Maybe in 10 years, I might have a deconversion process myself. There's been certainly plenty of times where I've felt that way over the last 7 years, that things have gone so wrong so many times that I've definitely felt that way. But I'm definitely grateful for my faith and for what I've experienced. So yeah, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Cool. All right. Well, on that note, I will end the stream. So for everyone who is watching, have a good morning, afternoon, evening, or whatever it is, wherever you are on this beautiful world that we all occupy.